On 19, notice that these powers of I are really, really big. Okay, so I to the first power is just I. That's pretty much what you expect. I squared, and remember I is the square root of negative 1. So if you square the square root, well then the square and the square root cancel out, and so you're just left with negative 1. So if you square this, if you were to square this, the square and the square root cancel out and you just have negative 1. So I squared is negative 1. I cubed is essentially I times I times I. So it's square root of negative 1 times the square root of negative 1 times the square root of negative 1. So remember that these two, the square roots here would cancel out and you'd get negative 1, and then you'd have this square root of negative 1 left. But remember, that's just I. So this is just going to be negative I, and then I to the fourth is basically I squared, right? I squared is the same thing as I to the fourth. So if you take this I squared number, if you square negative 1, you get positive 1. And then the whole cycle repeats again. So like this would be I to the 5th, I to the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. It just keeps repeating in this cycle of 4. And so if we want to figure out what I to the 23 is, we just need to figure out what iteration it's on between of this 1, 2, 3, or 4. Well, I to the 20th would be equivalent to I to the 4th because 20 is divisible by 4. So it would be like this. It would be, so 20 would be here. So it would be 21, 22, 23, and then 24 would go back, be another divisible by 4. So it would go back to just 1. So I to the 23 is evidently just negative I. And we do the same thing with 32, right? But 32, as it turns out, is actually already divisible by 4. So 32 is just going to be the number 1. So we just need to rewrite this so that it's in the conventional format. So it's going to be positive 1 minus I.